Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Apologies for not having published anything during the past 2 weeks, but I went 1 week with some friends to the Alps, and then on the last day that we were there I actually broke the ligaments of my right knee. So these past few days have not been ideal. Still though, I can't complain because I can still film videos, work normally and so on. So yeah, hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months then I will be fully recovered and I will be able to do stupid things again. But going to the point of the video, as some of you might know, I recently moved from Germany to Spain, which is my home country, and in doing so I also took the car that I bought in Germany with me back to Spain. The car itself is a Fiat Panda, which if you don't know which type of car this is, I will leave the video that I made a few months ago reviewing it here above and also down below in the description. And basically now that I have it finally registered in Spain and I have gone through the whole process of importing a car from Germany to Spain, I'm at the point in which I can share my experience, and hopefully this is helpful for YouTube, because when I had to do this I also had to watch some videos on YouTube and watch articles and so on. So I just hope that this is useful, and if it is, then I would very much appreciate it if you could just give it a like. With that said though, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. To do the whole process, I personally hired an external agency to help me, because as you might have seen if you have started researching it, it's a bit of a complicated process, and I just wanted to try to make it as easy as possible. And also, as you will see later on, the cost is not that expensive. So just bear in mind that what I will be explaining in this video were all the steps that I had to follow, but I had the help of an external agency that was guiding me through the different steps that I had to go through, and they also helped me with some paperwork. The first step in all of these is to bring the car to Spain, of course. In my case, I had it with German plates and the German insurance was running until the end of the year. So since I moved end of November, I knew that I had a bit more than a month to get all the papers and everything sorted. And then once I had the car registered in Spain with the Spanish plates and everything, then I deregistered the car from Germany. If you're just importing the car, you're just buying it, let's say in Germany, and then directly bringing it back to Spain, and you're not planning on living there, there is also the option to have temporary plates and temporary insurance. It's not something that I did, but it's also a possibility out there. Once I arrived with the car to Spain, I had already set an appointment, I think it was for the next day or sometime the next week, with the ITV, which is Inspección Técnica de Vehículos, which is basically the technical inspection of the vehicles, that usually when the vehicle is new you have to maybe pass it every 4 or 2 years, but then as it gets older, then every single year they are just checking that everything is running smoothly in the car, and then they basically just put a sticker saying that okay, you are allowed to drive for a certain period of time. So whenever you're importing a car, this is the first step that you need to take. And in this appointment that I went to with the ITV, what I had to bring were the original papers of the car. Of course, in this case, in my case, these were the German ones. And I also needed the certificate of conformity, which is something like this, what you will see right now in the screen. Additionally, in my case, when doing the whole process of registering the car in Spain, but that's something that is of my specific case, I also transferred the car to my dad, and we did that because the insurance was just way cheaper. We were saving, or we will be saving, around 300 euros every year in insurance, because of course he's older, he has more experience, and he also has other cars registered his name, so it was simply cheaper. So if you also need to transfer the car of ownership, it's better if you already do it at this stage when you go to the ITV, because when you are there, if you already present the purchase sale contract, which if you go to any of these agencies, they provided us already with a template, we just fill that out and we show them to the person there at the reception, and you need to then present this purchase sale contract. We presented of course the German documents as well as the certificate of conformity, and this way they already create all the new documents, the new papers for the car with the new owner of it, because if you don't present this purchase sale contract, they would just issue all the papers at my name, and then if I wanted to transfer it to my dad, we would have to afterwards change the whole paper. So it just makes the process a bit easier, and I think it's something worth noting if you're planning on doing something similar. Of course, when you're going to this appointment, you also need to take with you your ID card or passport, and you also need to pay there already the price of this inspection, which is of 117 euros and 68 cents. After this and handing the different documents I just mentioned now, they told us to pass by, I think it was 2 to 5 days afterwards, and they simply kept those original documents, and they did that just to double check that everything is okay, that they are not fake, and so on. And they told us, as I said, to pass by at a later stage. And during this time, at this moment, you also get some copies of the papers stamped or whatever, because in case the police stops you while you're driving the car, of course they have the original documents, so you need some kind of proof to show them that, look, I'm in the process of, changing the plates of the car or whatever, and then you don't have any problems. After those 2 to 5 days, when I went to collect the documents, they also gave me an appointment to do the real inspection of the vehicle, because up until then, they were only checking the documents, and this inspection appointment, I got it for 2 weeks after I went again there physically. And this inspection is a bit more exhaustive. It's not like the normal check that vehicles go through every year, every 2 years. It's a bit more exhaustive because they really want to make sure that you didn't change anything, or that basically the car is complying with all the regulations that are in place in Spain, which I think that whenever it's within another European country, probably those are also applicable, but yeah, they just want to be sure, so it's a bit more exhaustive. Following this inspection, if everything is fine, which in my case it was, then you get a document just certifying that that car is fine to be driven. And with the documents I got from the ITV, I just went to this external agency that I hired, and I brought them all the different documents that I had collected up until then. And from this point onwards, the agency took care basically of changing the name of the car and paying the corresponding taxes for the transmission, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we did kind of a purchase sale contract with my dad, also paying the yearly taxes of the vehicle to the Agencia de Tráfico, which is the traffic agency of Spain, and also the municipal fees. This process took roughly 2 weeks until I got the final documents confirming that the car had been correctly registered in Spain and that everything was fine. And the cost of the agency services was in total 135.29 euros. And then I also had to pay, of course, the taxes for the transmission of the car to my dad, which these were 188 euros. Then also the yearly taxes to traffic, which were 98.78 euros, and the municipal fees of 17.04 euros. In these last two concepts, I must say that maybe they shouldn't be considered as part of the cost of importing the car, because these are things that you need to pay anyways throughout the year. I think that the taxes to traffic usually are a bit cheaper, because in my case they had to also issue a new plate number, and this costs a bit more, but these would be concepts that you would still have to pay every single year just to maintain and be able to drive the car in Spain. Once I received the final documents, I then went to get the plates for the car. This is something that you can do in any car dealership once you have the original documents or papers of the car. And in my case, for 2 plates, so the one at the front and at the back, I paid 30 euros. And the final step then was to call the insurance provider. In my case, I had already called several ones and had the different budgets and so on, so I already had clear which one I would pick. So I just called them and said, look, I want to activate your service. And personally, just for your information, I pay 153.47 euros per year to have the car insured. At this point, I already had everything and the car was ready to be driven in Spain. This whole process took maybe a bit more than a month. You also need to consider that I did this throughout end of November until beginning of January. So I took the whole Christmas and festive season, in which many people take holidays. So most likely in another period or time of the year, it wouldn't have taken so long. But just to be sure, I would consider at least 1 month from the moment that you bring the car to Spain until you actually have it registered and with the Spanish plates and everything correctly. So you need to basically account for that. With this, let's now analyze the cost of the full process. In the screen now you have everything that I paid, which makes a grand total of 740.26 euros. However, in here it also includes things like the insurance or the yearly taxes, which every car needs to pay anyways in Spain. So technically, I would say that they are not part of the cost of importing the car, but simply the cost of owning a car in Spain. So if we remove this, we have that I paid 470.97 euros. In the breakdown though, you see that a big chunk of the total I paid to import the car came from the taxes of the transmission of the car to my dad. And this is something that, at least in the part of Spain I live in, I'm not sure if it's the exact same thing in other parts, some laws are a bit different. You basically need to pay 5% of taxes to the government whenever you transfer goods or things, even if it's another family member. In this case, the value that the agency estimated for the car was of 3,760 euros. This is something pretty established, so they basically take the initial price, how many years it has, how many kilometers and so on, and they get to this number. If I wanted to really sell this car to someone else, I could get much more than this, probably almost double, but this is how much they estimate it. And if you do 5% of that, then it comes to 188 euros. Obviously, this cost is something that I paid because I wanted to transmit the car to my dad. I knew that even if I had to pay this, it was better because we ended up paying less with insurance. But this is something that if you are keeping the same owner, the same original owner from the other country to Spain, you won't have to pay. So this 188 euros, if you're just keeping the same owner, you could just erase it from the cost of importing the car here in Spain. In the following table, you have the cost, excluding the transmission taxes that I paid. So in case this is something that doesn't apply to you, you could expect to pay around 282.97 euros in registering or importing a car here to Spain, and potentially even less, because with the agency, of course, the price that we ended up paying was probably higher because we also had this transmission of the car, and that's of course extra work for the agency, and they charged us for that. So if you don't have this transmission of name, it could be even cheaper than what I just mentioned right now. With it though, we now have covered everything regarding the process as well as the cost of importing a car to Spain, in my case from Germany, but I would assume that the process will be very similar for other states, at least within the European Union. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and as always, see you next time.